So bad now. Ask my family doctor about what I have now. I sit down, doctor, Mr. MD. Oh, can you tell me what's ailing me? Oh, he said, yeah, yeah. He said, yeah, yeah. Come on, baby. Oh, squeeze me tight. Don't you want your daddy to be alright? I sit down, baby. Oh, it's for sure. I got the fever. You got the cure. Oh, she said, yeah. She said, yeah, 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 yeah. All you need, all you really need is good love. 'Cause you got to have love. Got to have love. Little good love. Say who needs it? Little good love. I wanna know. Little good love. Or who needs it? Who needs it, Jack? Little good love. Listen, you need good loving. I needed it too. Talk about men. Talk about you now. Got to have loving. So who needs it? Got to have loving. Who needs it? Got to have little good loving way early in the morning. Little good loving way late at night. Kind of thing that make you know that everything's gonna be alright.